Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Salesforce Ben webinar, this time in collaboration with Accounting Seed. If you don't know me, I'm Sima from the Salesforce Ben team, and I will be your host for today's session. We're going to be discussing the impact of AI in accounting and how Salesforce admins are advancing their careers by partnering closely with finance teams. So before we dive in, we do have a couple of notes to run through. Firstly, at Salesforce Ben, we are building towards a future where there is a clear path to success for anyone wanting to embark on or accelerate a career within the Salesforce ecosystem. So as a part of that, we offer practical, relevant, and accurate information through many different mediums, which you can see listed on the screen. So we've got articles, newsletters, events, both these webinars, but also in-person events here in the UK and also in the US. YouTube, and also a podcast as well. So there really is something for everyone. If you haven't already had a look through any of what you see on screen, don't forget to check them out later at salesforceben.com. So before I introduce our panelists for today, a few quick housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and you will get a copy of this in your follow-up email in the next couple of days. Today's session is in listen-only mode, but please do interact with us via the chat function and click the Q&A tab at the top right-hand side to ask questions throughout, as we will have a Q&A at the end. Lastly, we do want to keep this session interactive and get your perspective on today's topic. So during our discussion, I will be launching a few poll questions from time to time. Please do engage with these and submit your votes. It's always lovely to hear from you all as well. Fab. So before we dive into our content today, I wanted to first introduce our speakers from Accounting Seed, a top-rated accounting software solution built natively on the Salesforce platform. So first we have Ryan Siv on the call with us today. Ryan is the Chief Technology Officer at Accounting Seed, where he leads the company's product vision and strategy. He has been in the tech space for nearly 20 years, having spent several years at Salesforce prior to joining Accounting Seeds, and he holds 16 Salesforce certifications. So today, Ryan is focused on building enterprise-grade applications that makes life easier for their users, with AI playing a major role. So welcome, Ryan, if you'd like to join us on the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for the generous intro.
No worries. We also have Carly Crossland as well. So Carly is the product manager at Accounting Seed and brings many years of experience as both an accountant and an accounting software implementer. She is also Salesforce certified and is really passionate about building solutions that bring CRM and accounting data together under one roof. Today, she supports the advancement of the Accounting Seed product, both their AI and automation capabilities. Hi, Carly. Thank you both for being with us here today. We're excited to dive into the discussion in just a moment. But before then, I just wanted to hand over to Carly to kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. Ryan and I are really excited to be here. So we'll dive in. So why are we here today? It's probably not a shock to any of you on the call that the role of the Salesforce admin is changing and it's evolving. AI has technically been around for a while, but now we're really starting to see it evolve faster and in a more tangible way. And while AI adoption for many companies is still relatively slow, especially for those in the small to medium business market, we know that it won't be slow forever. From what we're seeing, finance leaders at these growing companies are turning towards their various advisors and their business partners to help them understand the impact of AI and how to start testing and incorporating it into their business practices. And one of those trusted advisors are you all as our admins. So we're seeing that more and more our finance leaders are partnering with IT experts to understand the next steps with AI. And it all started with the trend of the great rebundling, which is the idea of moving away from multiple applications towards one unified system. Probably not anything that people are used to here. And this has a major impact primarily on finance departments because historically accounting data has always been kept separate from the front office data, requiring a lot of manual data entry or various integrations to get that data all in one place, which to be honest, still doesn't work very well given the fact that accounting systems and CRM systems are often built with different data frameworks. So the translation from one system to another can be time consuming and complex to set up and maintain. So why am I telling you all of this? Because AI is really only as good as the data it receives. And this is why finance professionals are turning towards admins to support the transition toward a unified platform now more than ever. So let's dive into what the data says a little bit. Okay, so some fun stats here. So what we're seeing is that 80% of CFOs want to switch to a single vendor solution. 95% of IT leaders say that integrations are blocking their AI success, and 68% of tech leaders are actively consolidating their app stack. And there's a couple more that I have here too. Even recently, Salesforce Ben, I know, reported that 61% of CFOs say that AI agents and digital labor is critical and will continue to be critical to compete in the current economic environment. And 74% of CFOs believe that AI agents will not only cut costs, but also drive revenue. So a lot of stats, I know, but the desire to move towards a single platform in the age of AI tell us that there is a massive opportunity for Salesforce admins to come in and position themselves as the bridge between business operations and financial data. It's clear that CFOs are exploring AI, but they will need the support of the technology experts like you all to help get them there. So this is why accounting and finance is currently sitting in the top 5 of areas being impacted dramatically by AI. But we know there's more to it than flipping a switch, of course, and seeing results from AI. And in order for AI to function properly and to provide accurate and meaningful results, we have to include accounting and finance in the conversation. So today, we're going to walk through 5 things here. First, common myths and misconceptions about AI and finance and what really matters. How to think reasons over rules in the age of AI and the skills you'll need moving forward. How connecting data on a single platform can help you become a strategic partner. And then a quick look at real agents. And of course, we'll finish up with Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Carly. So before we start talking accounting data and AI, I want to lay the foundation a bit and help the admins in our audience today understand how to develop frameworks for handling ambiguous requirements and building flexible systems. So, Carly, a good admin always seeks to understand the why before executing the what. So how does this approach change or expand with AI now coming into the mix, and how will it change traditional admin work?
This is such an excellent question because I think that phrase perfectly sums up the goal of an admin. Understand the why before executing the what. And traditionally, that's always been a responsible approach for an admin, right? Admins should understand the why before executing the what, especially because of how difficult it can be and inefficient to properly design the what if you don't first understand the why. So to design proper automation, an admin will gather predefined requirements from users that say, if X happens, then make Y happen. A scenario we're all familiar with, right? But what happens when a user says, well, sometimes X happens, and sometimes I need to change that afterwards, and sometimes I need to talk to so-and-so before anything else can happen? We've all heard that, right? So basically, what if this scenario needs a human touch or intervention? And that's what it sounds like in plain language. And the answer to that is, if it needs a human touch or intervention, it probably shouldn't be automated. And admins more than anyone know that. Up until this point, that was proper training to think in that type of if-then logic, because automation does follow pretty rigid rules and it does repeat programmed steps. So you don't ever want to automate something that someone should really have a human touch for. But now AI has come into the picture. And I don't believe that mindset will necessarily change for scenarios that should be cut and dry or should be programmed rigidly. But the question really becomes, how does the approach expand and grow now that AI has come into the mix? And it's not a secret that this will expand admin work or the role of the admin. With AI being a lot more flexible and analytical and having the ability to reason through ambiguous scenarios, we will absolutely need to expand upon the traditional if-then logic that we're also used to. So tactically, how does that expand? And I've been talking about this idea of a human touch or human intervention, and I definitely don't believe we won't ever need a human touch again. But historically, there have been plenty of tasks that cannot be automated, and they fall into this manual bucket where a person needs to go do something with it. So for example, and we'll show this later in our demo, let's say we have a customer who pays us monthly, and I want to know when that customer is likely to submit their payment. It's very hard for automation alone to handle that situation, even if an admin built complex automation and logic to try to automate that scenario. It's one more customer behavior scenario that an admin needs to go code on top of all the other scenarios in the business, and it's one more business use case that needs to be updated and maintained over time. So let's say we don't automate that customer scenario because it's too ambiguous. Even if the users looking for this answer had all of the data at their fingertips in a report to pull from, it would require the user to perform a lot of manual data manipulation to make an informed decision. And what's the downside of that? Well, the person trying to figure out that answer probably just wasted a couple hours of their time. So it's not a perfect scenario. And those use cases are really where AI shines and where an admin can really shine if they learn when the best time is to utilize AI and how to utilize it. That scenario is going to require that payment patterns over time are learned and analyzed. So it's a perfect use case for AI to be used. And now the question simply is, can the admin shift from this if-then logic that they're so used to instead learning how to use AI that can learn, reason, and adapt to more ambiguous context like that?
Amazing, thank you. And Ryan, how should admins be thinking about building systems that can handle ambiguity and context rather than following predefined logic paths?
So that word context is a really special word there. Carly talked a lot about like criteria and rules, and I think classically admins have been working in criteria and rules in pretty much every system to date until the advent of AI, like we see it now with agents. Simple question, what's for lunch today, right? Well, what's your context? Are you working from home? Are you at an airport? Are you in the office? Like, there's serious change to what would come next with what's for lunch based on the context that surrounds that question, right? So as an admin, there'll be a shift from focusing on criteria, rules, looking at your requirements, and then determining these predefined, outputs, so to speak, as far as the automation goes. And you'll be really challenged with determining the appropriate context to give to an AI to help with these automations or system processes. So as an admin, we've probably all built, maybe a process that sends out an email reminder, maybe for like an overdue invoice or something like that. But you may want to surround that with additional context of like, do they have a billing dispute that's open that might prevent me from sending that out? Or maybe if I'm matching two records together, let's say an invoice to a payment, maybe I want to match based on a date range, plus or minus a few days, an amount, plus or minus a certain percentage. Maybe there's additional information with the payment detail, like a payment reference or an invoice number that you want to feed in as context. So as an admin, these were all like conditions that we would create as criteria or rules in the system. But now we're surrounding an AI with this context as to how to make a decision. So it allows us to pick up a lot more process in these tools, right? As opposed to having all these predefined paths that we have to define from the beginning.
Fab, thank you. Some great insights there, and really helpful to talk through how AI is changing the way admins have to approach system design and support. So I'm going to launch our first poll now. So just so you can all get involved, we'd love to know, how often do business stakeholders ask you for data that exists outside Salesforce? So you can navigate to the poll tab in between chat and Q&A on the right-hand side of your screen, and you'll be able to submit your vote. So whilst the audience are filling that in, I would love, I know that your team has a deep understanding of the benefits and differences between on-platform solutions and off-platform tools that require connectors, given Accounting Seed is built natively on the Salesforce platform. But I think a single platform strategy is going to be really valuable for the Salesforce admin career path. And I want to dive into this through the lens of AI and the great rebundling trend we touched on earlier. So Carly, what's the strategic advantage of solving business problems with solutions built on the Salesforce platform versus adding various applications via connectors? And how should admins evaluate that decision?
Such a great question, and just thing to think about. So as admins, we know how hard it is to not only connect separate systems, but to maintain data integrity across those systems. And when businesses are adding applications via various integrations, there's so much, right? There's development and maintenance of data connections, ongoing API management, version updates, data synchronization issues, ongoing efforts to resolve those conflicts, and then of course, security and compliance maintenance across multiple systems. When the data is living in multiple places, there's always something that needs to be maintained or fixed or data that doesn't match. So in a way, I look at this question more as what's the strategic disadvantage of solving business problems that live in various applications and are connected through an integration? And there are a lot of disadvantages to setting up a system like that. Whereas the advantage of solving business needs with solutions that are all built on the Salesforce platform is that you don't have really any of the problems that I just listed out. There's only one data source, there's one place to set security, you don't have to maintain APIs or data connections, and instead you have a single platform with all of the information needed in one place. We can all dream, right? Perfect world. But what are the benefits of that, if that's what you're shooting for? So 3 benefits I can think of. The first being having data context, like Ryan was talking about earlier, across those applications is critical for decision making. We'll dive into this and an example of this in a little while. Second, you want to be able to use AI capabilities that span multiple business functions. And then lastly, the time to value is realistic and achievable on your own platform. A lot of the people in the industry have probably referenced the recent study that MIT did. I know it was very popular. I've been looking at that myself, and I found it extremely interesting when they said 95% of AI initiatives are failing to reach production deployments because they are not integrated to critical systems like CRMs, ERP, supply chain, or finance. And why is that? And we all know AI thrives on consistent, well-structured data like you would have in your Salesforce environment. And if your data is not harmonized across these critical systems, you're moving mountains before you can even get to the starting line with AI. So the biggest benefit of having applications that live on the Salesforce platform is that there is no need to integrate. The time to value to appreciate the benefits of AI on platform is immediate for those businesses who do put their applications on platform and who do ground their AI in the single data source that is Salesforce.
Fantastic, thank you. And Ryan, why is platform thinking becoming an increasingly valuable skill versus integration expertise for Salesforce admins, especially with the rise of AI on the platform?
Well, I think a lot of it ties back to that concept of context, right? Having everything in one place. If you've ever played telephone, right, you lose context or you lose information as it goes from one place to the next to the next. This great rebundling helps create this, cohesive ecosystem where all the data, all the context, all the automations, user permissions, et cetera, are all in the same place. If you're an admin on the webinar here today, you might think back over time to like S controls and workflow rules, process builder, flow. Apex came in, but you think about the product portfolio that's grown with Salesforce as well, like Heroku, Tableau, MuleSoft. All these things have really become this big, product portfolio, this big ecosystem. Slack, you can't forget Slack. That's all part of this too. So if you're an admin who's enabled to very fluidly move across these different solutions, who's able to build context around AI on all these things, it really becomes kind of a superpower, right? If you have all these integrated siloed systems, it can be an encumbrance to the business and a lot of overhead. But as an admin, you're really empowered to provide a lot of meaningful capabilities to the business with that rebundled platform like we were talking about.
Amazing, thank you. Lots of valuable information there. And thank you everyone for filling in the poll as well. It does look like the majority of you are getting requests on a weekly weekly basis and then monthly, followed closely by monthly. So that's super interesting. Thank you all. I did want to launch our second poll now as well as we move into discussing some concrete steps that admins can take today to position their orgs for AI capabilities. So same as the first one, if you could just navigate to the poll tab and let us know what your current relationship with AI in your admin work is. And whilst you fill this in, I did want to ask both of you, so Ryan, what types of business problems that were previously too complex for automation are now becoming solvable with AI assistance?
So it's a good question. I think I'll add on that that rebundling part of it as well with AI and with this rebundling that's happening too. But typically, too manual for automation was summed up with too complex to integrate, too many potential inputs, too many potential outputs, too many human decisions to be made. But if you think about that rebundling and all that context that's there, really you're re-enabled with all this new information, right? Decisions that would be stuck in a spreadsheet or an offline process or beholden to a data sync process, that all goes away. All that complexity goes away, and you're able to make a lot of these automations or these informed decisions based on everything that's in one place. So it's really made huge changes for an admin to empower a business to streamline its operations or its decision making because all this is in one place.
Amazing, thank you. And Carly, it would be good to get your thoughts on this as well.
Sure, yeah. And this is what we previously talked about too, right? In the example I gave earlier with predicting when a payment will be received by a customer, sometimes it's nearly impossible to account for every condition a user is going to throw at you. In a process like this, and like Ryan mentioned, it's too manual for automation because there's so many variables, so much analysis and learning that needs to take place. And a process like this probably would have gone unsolvable with standard automation tools, and someone would have instead spent hours being forced to do that manual work and analysis, which is why it's so important to not only have your applications on platforms so that we can reference that data across the platform, but then to leverage the embedded AI that Salesforce provides to us through Agentforce across those applications. And that allows us to achieve the functionality that goes beyond predefined logical paths we're so used to with flows, and instead take advantage of the embedded AI that can assist with those manual processes.
Great, thank you. And Ryan, how should admins be preparing their data models and processes today to take advantage of those AI capabilities that are coming?
Well, if you're like me and you see my browser right now, I have a million tabs open. I'm certainly guilty of that, and I'm sure many of the admins are as well, right? And so, you think about this concept to context we've been talking about, and imagine that you have a new admin starting at your company today, and sometimes Salesforce environments can get very big, very complex. You have fields that you used actively at one point and may not anymore. It can be difficult to kind of weed out like what's most important to the business, what's actively being used, and what's not, right? So if you kind of apply that concept to context and how we work through these new ways of providing automation and streamlining processes in the system, you really want to trim the fat, for lack of better words, right? You want to try to get rid of old processes you don't need, old fields you don't need, old data you don't need. Really try to clean house, because as you look to adopt some of these AI-driven tools, as you look to surround those tools with that context, you don't want to have to weed out a lot of stuff that's distracting, right? Or you're trying to account for conditions or things like that that are really kind of irrelevant, right? So the big thing here is try to really just focus on what's core to the business, its operations, its KPIs, and eliminate the other things that kind of add up over time. I know that's a big task, and I don't want to just wave my hands at that and say that happens super quickly, but I think that's something that you could do as a favor to yourself, to other admins that you work with, or to your company, is just try to eliminate the unneeded stuff, because it's going to help accelerate your adoption curve within your org.
Amazing, nice. Thank you. There's some excellent advice there, Ryan. Yeah, AI requires us to prepare and think differently. So yeah, really appreciate that insight. And thanks everyone again in the audience for letting us know your own relationship with AI in your current work. It does look like a lot of you are actively experimenting with it already, and in some cases as well, using it quite successfully in some processes, which is great to see. So I do want to bring it all back together and talk through why having financial data context changes everything here and why Salesforce admins should even care. So why does having financial context within a CRM system fundamentally change how organizations make decisions? And why should today's admins care, Carly, if you want to?
Yeah, sure. So like Ryan's been talking about, I mean, context is absolutely critical. And financial context really is no exception. So let's talk about revenue in a business, and let's assume that the CRM and finance system are disconnected. If a company was using Sales Cloud, you'd expect the salespeople to use opportunities to track the sale, right? And that's great that they can track the sale, of course, but there are other things that are important to a sales team, like actually getting paid for the sale. And what happens when someone needs to see if their newly signed customer pays their bills on time or has outstanding receivables, or maybe they represent a credit risk. That's not information that someone can just go to chatgpt.com and type in, right? Like I can't just open ChatGPT and say, well, customer X paid their bill on time, because ChatGPT would be like, I can't answer that question. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's because a general account with ChatGPT is not going to have the context needed to answer questions like that. But what would a salesperson be able to do differently if they did have access to that information? Would they take a certain action if they could see that there was low credit risk, or maybe they try to upsell if they saw the customer was, healthy and paying their monthly bills on time? They would only get this type of data context if A, their financial system was embedded in their CRM system, or B, they spent a lot of money and time on a custom integration to two separate systems. So which is the better option, especially for admins? And we all know it's having different applications live on platform. We all want that real-time revenue intelligence to make decisions that you wouldn't otherwise be able to make without certain context. And then you think about adding AI into this mix. Imagine what AI could do if your org was informed on that financial context and what that could do for your business. So imagine being able to see ROI on certain marketing campaigns you might run, or if you're using Service Cloud, understanding how much revenue a customer brings in as it relates to case priority. Or maybe you're a field service company and you prioritize scheduling jobs based on the highest profit margins. Or you're a salesperson wanting to know when a company makes payments, so your sales commission is paid on time. In all of these examples, no matter which one, financial context is at the core of those. Businesses need to make money, right? They don't always have this financial context available to inform common business decisions like this. But the good news is the person who's able to give them those insights are admins. Salesforce admins really are the champions here in this case, because you all know how important it is for solutions to live natively, how important data context is, and hopefully after today, you understand more how AI being grounded in your organization's data is just another layer to that intelligence that you can bring to your individual organizations.
Lovely, thank you. And so, Ryan, what role should Salesforce admins play in breaking down the traditional silos between financial data and operational data?
Yeah, a lot of times financial data is a lagging indicator in the business, right? You have your front office system, CRM, whatever that might be. And then oftentimes, whether you're rekeying things or integrating, that data goes downstream, right? And it goes to an accounting team, finance team, they analyze it. And sometimes, but not always, there's a feedback loop to those front office systems about, financial performance, financial activities, whatever that might be. And so it's tough, right? You end up having like lagging indicators or business decisions that are being made that may not be fully informed with financial aspects of the system. So, CFO, of course, strategic advisor to the business. But the admin really becomes this strategic enabler to the business, right? If they're able to bring some of that financial data into your day-to-day operations, it can really be a game changer, right? To have that financial data woven into the fabric of everyday decisions, everyday view of the customer, et cetera. It really can move mountains, right? I mean, it can be, as Carly was saying, like to get insights about the performance of a marketing campaign or the margin on a job, if you have a field dispatch, whatever that might be, it can really change the financial wellness of the business to be able to make some of those informed decisions based on that. So that admin really plays that great role of that enabler to the business to bring in some of that data to streamline those processes.
Amazing, thank you. I really appreciate those insights. So I'm going to launch our final poll for today's session. Yeah, that's so it should be ready now if you want to navigate to the polls tab. We'd really love to know what you typically do when someone asks for finance data to be more visible. Do you direct them to the finance team or accounting system, build a basic report pulling from existing opportunity/revenue fields, explore what specific financial context would help their daily work, or start researching integration options with your financial systems? I'm expecting this one to be a little bit more of a spread, I think, rather than a majority leaning one way, which is definitely what I can see coming through with the votes now. It does look like it's pretty evenly spread, actually. Yeah, the one which looks the most is directing them to the finance team or accounting system, though, which is super interesting. So thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in with the polls. Ryan, I'd love for you to share a final piece of advice to sort of round off our discussion. So what should admins be learning and practicing now to position themselves as strategic business system architects with AI and Agentforce?
Sure. So you think about the life cycle of data that would be running through Salesforce at that point. You'd really have a full life cycle from a lead, the moment a lead hits the system, all the way down to the general ledger, right? So going back to that concept of the strategic enabler, I think as an admin, it's important to understand the technology. You're all well skilled with flows and everything else that's in the system now, and adding these AI and agent skill sets are going to be key. We've talked a lot about context today, and surrounding that AI with context about what it should do, when it should do it, et cetera. But you as an admin need to supplement your own context, right? So you need to be looking at, what are the most critical KPIs for the business, really wrapping your head around that. Is it revenue in a specific sales channel? Is it margin on your projects? Is it your customer retention in the Service Cloud use cases, right? Really fundamentally understanding how the business runs and what are the most important metrics to the business will help inform your context as an admin, right? So AI is your tool. AI is like another thing in your toolkit that you can leverage, and you'll surround that AI with the context it needs to go perform whatever task you're putting in front of it. But for you as an admin, you need to supplement, augment, build your context around what makes the business successful, because as that great enabler to the business, you really have to have a deep understanding of what makes the business work. And then you can start to make some decisions about how the system can best support that. So that's kind of functional for an admin, right? From a technical standpoint, we all know Trailhead. We all love Trailhead. So make sure you go through Trailheads. You make sure you understand the concepts of agent roles, instructions, et cetera. I would really hone your focus on prompt templates as a specific skill set. And then, of course, you can do a little light reading on context engineering and prompt engineering to go along with it. So you don't have to learn everything in a day. I think anytime you're digging into new technology or different technology, you could make the comparison to like playing an instrument. You're not going to sit down and learn how to play guitar in one long day of practicing. Like, you're going to need consistent small touches every day. It's the same thing with these technologies, with this approach. Stay with it, find 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, whatever that might be. really hone those skills. And of course, build your own context as to what makes the business successful.
Amazing. Thank you. Some really great advice there, Ryan. And I think it would be pretty cool to see how agents are being used at Accounting Seed as well. So I am going to pull down my screen share, and then Carly, if you want to take us through that.
Sure. Yes, I'd love to talk a little bit about this. So hold on one second. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So before I dive in here, let's talk a little bit about how we are applying this approach to our software. So let's pretend we have customers who have recurring contracts and maybe they pay on a monthly or a quarterly schedule. And you as the admin are getting called by your senior leadership team who's trying to understand when your customers are likely going to pay you. So right now in time, without any embedded AI, what are your options here? Maybe you try to get all of the requirements needed to automate this information, but maybe you find out that the criteria is not so cut and dry. So then you realize automation doesn't quite fit the bill. And maybe your finance team or executive team exports a ton of data into Excel, and then they elect to do some type of manual process or Excel magic to get these answers. It's probably not the best use of time. And both of these require manual work, right? Both of these options also require a lot of upkeep to ensure that the logic and the data is current. And this is exactly why we have identified this specific scenario as a great use case for an agent to help with. So let's dive in and we'll take a look at our agents. So we do have 4 agents that we'll be coming out with. We have a collections agent, which is what you're seeing on the screen here, a bill pay agent, a general ledger agent, and a support agent. And like I said, with our use case today, we'll ask a couple questions of the collections agent. So let's start with that. Okay, so my first question that I'm going to ask is which billings are at risk of not being paid on time? And for those of you not familiar with accounting or the world of finance, billings are like customer invoices. So think of it in terms of that, like a customer gets an invoice to make a payment. Okay, so it's saying here are the billings at risk of not being paid on time. Let me know if you need further details. And we have a couple of billings here, and you can see we have these predictions in here. So maybe it's somewhat likely, maybe it's unlikely to be paid on time. And of course, I can always view more to see, what are those predictions. We have some in here that are just completely unlikely and some that are somewhat unlikely. And I'm curious too, what is the balance, the total balances for these records? Maybe I just want to see how much outstanding as a business I should be expecting from customers that might be somewhat unlikely to be received on time. Okay, so it has quickly summed that up for me, and I can see it's about 108,000 in payments that I should be expecting. And let's ask about a specific customer here. So I have a customer called Swift Gifts, and I'm curious, how long does it typically take them to pay? I'll ask, how long does it typically take Swift Gifts to make payment? This is another piece of our payment prediction. We're just trying to figure out what are those predictions. And we can see here that it has run that for us. So their average is about 15 days that it takes them to pay. So you can see the data context theme on full display here. We're looking at an account in Salesforce right here who has a closed won opportunity, of course, theoretical, that we have built from inside Salesforce. And the agent understands the context of what I'm asking. And if I go back to my ChatGPT example again, I cannot just go to chatgpt.com and ask these same questions because it wouldn't understand the context of what I'm asking. And even if I had Salesforce and I was using Sales Cloud, I could not ask the agent when a customer is likely to pay because it does not have that financial context without a finance or accounting system. And it's crucial that business operations have financial context like this. And admins really are in the perfect position to give their senior leadership this kind of capability. Okay, so that was pretty much it. So being a former accountant, I could talk about this stuff all day. As you can tell, we're excited about what our agents can do for organizations out there, but enough about us. We'd love to hear your questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen and we can take a look at the Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you, Carly. We did have one question come in. What kind of knowledge do we as admins need to have about accounting/finance in order to support AI accounting agents?
This is a topic I could talk about all day, so you might have to cut me off on this one. But as an admin, you may have heard of Salesforce's CPQ. You may have heard of Salesforce Revenue Cloud. You may be using them, but that's, I think, a really great place to start building your accounting vocabulary and kind of your accounting terminology, right? So we're probably all familiar with the concept of revenue. We're probably all familiar with the concept of expense, right? And so having some basic fluency of like revenue and expense, margin, and you'll see these concepts present themselves through Salesforce CPQ or Revenue Cloud. It's a great place to kind of sink your teeth into the concept of like accounting and finance as it relates to things that you may already be using Sales Cloud with those other products as well. When you're feeling comfortable with that, I think the next thing to maybe take a look at from an accounting perspective would be what's called like a profit and loss, which is revenue versus expense, your profit versus your loss. And that tells you about the ongoing health of the business, right? Are you earning more than you're spending? It's kind of a simple thing. So I think that's a good sort of foothold to begin your accounting vocabulary journey, and then you can launch off into other things like the balance sheet and things like that. But that's just my humble opinion. Carly, you're the proper accountant here. So what are your thoughts on?
No, I think honestly you said that probably exactly how I would have said that, Ryan. But I mean, I think it goes back to that conversation, right? Of you don't have to be the accounting expert. Like you can be the strategic advisor. You can be the IT expert and work with your CFO to come up with a good solution. They're going to be the accounting expert. There's a lot you can do. Ryan mentioned all those, different things that you can do to bridge that gap between the CFOs and the actual technology implementation without having that deep knowledge of finance, but you can rely on your finance team. And then of course, Ryan's recommendations on a couple of things that you can learn to verse yourself with it are spot on.
Amazing. Thank you. Someone else mentioned that they saw that Accounting Seed will be at Dreamforce this year. Will you be showcasing your agents in more depth at the event?
Yes, you can come find me. I will be there demoing our agents, talking about our agents. So you have, a visual look at what I look like now. Come find me at the booth and I'd be happy to do that.
Amazing, thank you. Another one here. Can the AI look at data from two sources in Salesforce and outside of Salesforce, like MySQL DBS, to do analysis?
A great technical question. Yeah, there are ways to do that, and they get a little bit nuanced depending on the technology that you're using, right? So one thing that you can look at is Data Cloud. Of course, Data Cloud is purpose-built to bring all that data from other platforms into one place, right? And then you can have your agents consume data from Data Cloud. The other thing that you may want to look into are external connections, right? External connectors that allow you to present data from external data sources natively within the platform too. And the beauty of that as well is that the Salesforce agents have the ability to kind of query those as you go. So that would probably be the best ways to access that. Of course, you can build Apex that does call outs to these databases as well. It just kind of depends on where that data lives and what is accessing it. But I'll go back to that conversation we were having earlier about integrations and things like that. Oftentimes it's easiest or fastest, in most context rich if it's on platform. I get that that's not always going to be something you can do 10 out of 10 times. So there are ways to get to that data from agents if needed.
Lovely, thank you. Another question here. I think Carly mentioned how AI is being slowly adopted by smaller companies, but I also think they can benefit the most from it. So how can we help make AI more accessible for our clients in the SMB realm?
That's a great question. I can take that, and then Ryan, if you wanted to add on to it. But I think a solution like this, with having your applications on platform, like I've been talking about, is the perfect case for the SMB space, because previously in the past, you would see these connectors and integrations, and it would be very costly to have intelligence like this. And I think with the introduction of embedded AI Agentforce on the Salesforce platform, SMBs can really take advantage of AI now at low to no cost, because it is embedded in the solution. And they can do that by having the applications on platform. So, for example, with our customers specifically, let's say they're using Sales Cloud and Accounting Seed, they can adopt AI without having to go through these large, complex, expensive integrations to get this type of intelligence. So it's a pretty amazing thing to see from my vantage point, watching Salesforce come out with Agentforce, because it's embedded, and because you just get it from being on the Salesforce platform. That time to value of achieving that return on your investment is so quick for SMBs, whereas at one point in time, it was practically not achievable. Brian, I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
No, I would just say the words data warehouse, right? A lot of times SMB type companies don't have the time or resources to build a data warehouse, which is what you would typically associate with this type of effort. So, this great rebundling, as Carly was mentioning, having everything kind of in one place, you've already done that, right? And then that's what shrinks up that time to value, because you've already got everything. You have all that context, everything's ready to go, and the AI is embedded in the platform. So, you don't have to go through that exercise of building a data warehouse, training, an AI technology and all that stuff. So it's a shortcut for sure.
Great, thank you. And can you share your thoughts on what success metrics admins should track to show the value of accounting embedded into Salesforce?
Well, how long is a piece of string? It's as long as you want, right? So I think the KPIs themselves become dependent on the business. So in terms of what is successful, you could look at things like approval processes, like how many times does an approval get approved or rejected, or how long does it take to do that? Because a lot of times those and Carly was kind of mentioning this earlier, like that's a manual checkpoint. Sometimes that's going to a person who has a spreadsheet or, some other offline process. So there are things that you can look at in your business, like an approval process, or how long it takes to build certain types of reports, or how good our margins were on a certain product line. Whatever's critical to your business, those are those KPIs. But you can kind of lean into those key focus metrics and understand how those things improve, right? So is it time that we're saving? Is it accuracy and information and how timely that data comes? Or does it change the way the business operates and like how we price, how we sell, something like that?
Great, thank you. Another one here. In what product are the Accounting Seed agents included?
I can answer that. So our main product is the prerequisite, and then we will have another add-on, install link that someone could take and add agents onto our package. So pretty simple.
Lovely, thank you. And how does Accounting Seed differ from other solutions on the App Exchange like Certinia/Financial Force?
Ryan, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always look at our product as, I mean, number one, we focus on the SMB market. So that's first and foremost. I think Certinia does rely heavier on the enterprise side. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And then I also have always looked at our products a little bit differently. I consider Accounting Seed to be very horizontal. So catering to various industries across the ecosystem. I mean, we service pretty much every industry you can think of: field service, higher ed, nonprofit, professional services. We pretty much have every industry you can think of as our customers. Whereas I've always looked at Certinia as a little bit more specialized in the professional services industry. They do really well in that space for enterprise customers. But those, I would say, are probably the two biggest differences. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add, but.
Nope, I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Any last questions before we wrap up the session? Great. I think we can wrap up now. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ryan and Carly, for your time today and for sharing all of the insights. It was really, really useful, and I hope everyone in the audience found it useful as well. Great. I'm glad to see that people have been finding it helpful. Lovely. Thank you, everyone in the audience as well, for joining us today and for participating in the polls. It's always great to hear your own insights around the topic as well. So thanks, everyone. As I mentioned in my intro, a recording will be shared in our follow-up email in the next couple of days in case you would like to revisit anything that was discussed and relive this webinar. But otherwise, I hope you all have a fab rest of the day wherever you are, and we will see you in our next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.